Dear students, we look into the next part of corporate communication, that is reports. Now let us begin by defining what is business reports. As per Chaturvedi and Chaturvedi book, which has been given to you all, a business report is an orderly and objective communication of actual information that serves a business purpose. Now, what does this business report do? Is it provides some information which the manager or the top level management would want to use it for the business purpose. Further, the business reports generally draw an outside source. It present facts, conclusions, recommendation based on investigation and analysis. Papers can be written based on that. So papers, articles, a detailed report or a project report can be written out of it. Reports generally are in a structured format. So how the business reports are being written, we are going to look into that. Reports are generally numbered and captioned with headings and subheadings, and business report use tables and graphs decided by the summary. Now, let's look into the next part, that is the kinds of reports. A lot of reports which we are going to go through from the business perspective, but these are basic reports which probably you would have gone through on a everyday basis. The first one is the routine reports. Routine reports are regular reports where you just have to fill in the details. These are pre-printed forms which are available in the offices at the administrative or the HR front, and these reports you just have to fill in the details. Like supposedly you would have traveled and you would want to reimburse your traveling expenses from the office. So what is to be done is these are pre-printed forms which are available, and you just have to fill in the details which are left in blank. The next one is the letter reports, various forms of letters what we have gone through. Next one is the memo reports. Again, these are pre-printed memo which are available at the office, and you just have to fill the reports. The next one is the progress reports. These are certain reports which we tend to use on a regular basis, where what is the progression, what is done in the past week or what is done in the last 1 month is being reported, and the status of it has been told. And then we have the next one is the periodic reports. The periodic reports keep records at a regular interval, maybe at every quarter or maybe biannually or maybe annually. And laboratory reports, results of the laboratory test. These are some of the kinds of reports. These are basic reports. Some of them are business reports, some of them are not. So let's look into some more kinds of reports, and the reports can be short reports, reports. We in fact had a lot of debate and discussion on the format of reports, and in that we were speaking about the short reports and the long reports. Now, the short reports, as discussed in the class, these are 1 to 2 pages of reports which are being generated, and these are formal reports, and they are very simple in nature, and they are having a structure. The second one is the formal reports, where you have a full-fledged structure with respect to that, and you need to write a lot of things when you are writing the formal reports. And as discussed in the class, it it varies from close to about 50 pages to say about 400 500 pages also. And the one which we are going to emphasize as part of today's class is the project reports. And the project reports are formal student reports which a student tends to do a summer internship program, or maybe a major concurrent project at the end of the third semester, at the end of fourth semester. So the student undergoes the projects, and he needs to document what work has been done by him. So that is what we are going to emphasize in today's session, that is the project reports, the formal student reports. Now, moving on, the project reports. These, as I said some time back, the SIPs or the summer internship report is the documentation of a student's work, a record of the original work done by the student in the summer internship of 8-week duration. Now, the university allocates 8 weeks, generally starts from a Monday and moves on to 8 weeks from there. And each week there is some work which has been allocated for the student, and the student has to undergo that work at the organization. Now, the second requirement is if you have to clear your graduation or a post graduation, you need to fulfill this as an academic requirement. So somebody fails in a SIP or somebody fails in a MCP, he will not be given a MBA degree. So it is a basic academic requirement which is necessary for you to clear. So, and last, which is again important, which is to be done at the business organization. Now, there are reports which can be done without the help of the organization, like your academic reports, which you tend to do it in your classroom, where you do not get affiliated to your organizations at all, but you are working on a particular concept. But here what happens is you work on a concept, but simultaneously you have to be associated with one of the business organization. Now, the way you choose the organization is based on your specialization. And supposedly you are doing a marketing specialization in your second semester, you tend to go ahead with the marketing project, and similarly with finance, to a finance project. And if you are in a HR specialization, a HR project has to be picked up. But university doesn't bind you with respect to that. The university further states that you can take up projects, be it in any domain. So there have been cases where the students have done a report of the SIPs in various organization based on whatever the organization requirement is. Now, the first thing which we have to go through is the selection of the problem. Now, there are a lot of problems which the organization would definitely face. Now, based on that, you will have to convert those problems into your objectives, and from there, you have to do your studies. So, what is the selection of problem and how do we do it? Is just a briefing. The objective should be manageable in terms of length of time available, its scope, and the organizational resources required for completing the project. Now, the problem might be at length, where you are not supposed to spend too much time, because usually, as in the previous slide I said, yeah, maximum of 8 weeks what would be given to you. And this 8 weeks, you have to make sure that you have to study the problem, you have to get a solution for it, and possibly implement solution for it. If not, it becomes very, very difficult if the length of the problem or the length of the time required to solve this problem is very high. Probably you would not be in a position to take up those problems from your work, where you feel so that it can probably take a maximum of say 6 to 8 weeks, not more than that, because last 2 weeks or last or 2.5 weeks you will have to dedicate yourself for data analysis and report writing. The next thing is there are a lot of projects which the students take up. The titles are exceptionally good, but what happens, the organization doesn't provide them resources. It could be internal resources or external resources, where the organization, the business organization, doesn't give them access to, which makes them quite very difficult for them to access these resources, and because of which they are unable to come to a probable solution. So the best thing what has been suggested to the students is primarily look at the length of the time available to solve the problem, and look at the organizational resources which would be required to complete the project. Second one is potential for making a significant contribution to management theory and practice. Now, something which you can do is once you have jotted down the problem in a nice way, or if you have understood the problem in a nice way, you can do wonders by not only giving them a potential solution, but possibly implementing those solutions which helps them in a great way, especially in their practice, because they might remember you for this for a lifetime. And there are a lot of students who in the past have got placements because of their significant contribution during the SIPs. Last one is the scope for further in-depth exploration. Supposedly you end with a research problem and you tend to give a solution, but the same solution can be picked up, or if there is any gap, the person who picks up that particular research, so that we call it as further scope for research. So even that somebody would want to explore can probably pick it up. We move on to the next part of the SIP, that is the SIP reports. What are the components of SIP reports? Is obviously it needs to have a title page. It needs to have company certificate. It needs to have the acknowledgement, the table of contents, the list of tables, the list of figures, the list of photographs, list of symbols, abbreviations, and nomenclature. Executive summary. It needs to be divided into chapterization. So obviously the first chapter is your basics, the introduction about the organization. Then we have the literature review. The next chapter is methodology. We have the data analysis and findings as the next chapter. And lastly, we tend to give suggestions and conclusions as one chapter. We also have to have references and bibliography at the end of the research, where whatever literature is been reviewed by us, we would have to give references to it. And appendix is something which uh, with respect to anything which has been used, like a questionnaire which has been used or a data which has been used, probably can be if the person would want to go through it. So please give the information in the form of appendix. Now, next, what do we see? This is how it is there in the Chaturvedi and Chaturvedi book. Now, the first one, as I said sometime back, the table of contents. This is how the table of contents look like. So you have onto the left hand side the acknowledgements. With respect to that, what is the page number which would be there. Now, this is automated, and I'm going to have a separate session for it with respect to how to have the table of contents, how to actually get your document, your SIP document with a proper table of contents. I'm pretty sure your ITM professor has already taught you, but we are going to have a separate session for that. So onto the left hand side, what you see is acknowledgements, abstracts, list of figures, list of tables, list of appendix, list of abbreviations. Abbreviations are, supposedly I've used CRM into my literature, or somewhere I've used a word called as CRM. Now these words all put together, a list of abbreviations have to be listed down, and what are their full forms. Like CRM means customer relationship management, so whatever are being used have to be mentioned there. As I said sometime back, introduction is the first chapter, literature review is the second chapter, research design or your methodology is third chapter, results and discussions or results and findings all put together becomes your fourth chapter, and references appendix, as I said sometime back, is this is how it has been shown. So we move on to the next. The next thing is title. The title of the report should be selected in such a way that it should reflect the work carried out by the student. Therefore, the student should select most appropriate title for to work carried out during the summer internship program. So your title should reflect of work is been done by you, and it should not be too very length, but it should in general tell you what is the work which has been carried out by you. The certificate looks like this. The content should have 1.5 line spacing using Times New Roman font size. The, satis- the certificate shall have details such as the name of the student, roll number, title of the summer intern, duration. Duration is very important, which has been mentioned from the university. Should have that. Quite important is on the certificate which has been given from the organization, the name of the supervisor, his designation, the organization name should be mentioned in full, and where whomsoever is guided you should make sure that he has signed, he or she has signed the certificate. Lastly, the certificate should be printed on the letterhead of the organization and not on a plain sheet. It should have been printed on the letterhead, and also, if possible, it should have the seal of the organization which has been where you have worked, you have done your project. Next is we move on to the acknowledgement. Just make sure that the acknowledgement is with respect to whomsoever is guided you during the project. It can be your guide, your co-guide, your external guide, your internal guide, the people who have worked you make your summer internship successful. You need to acknowledge their be it the director of the institution, be it a placement officer who has helped you to get the placements or get your internship there in the organization. You should make sure that you acknowledge the fact that whomsoever has helped you, they should be all thanked in this acknowledgement. Then we move on to the executive summary. Now, generally, this executive summary should be what you have done in the 8 weeks of internship, and you should mention it in a very brief and precise way. Now, what is to be mentioned here is if any training is been given to you, you need to make a mention of that, and at the initial phase, and whatever task was allocated to you, what problem was assigned to you or selected by you, and how did you solve that, and what methods have you used, maybe analytical or uh, various analytical tools, what data you have used, what are your challenges you have faced. All those things can be made a mention here in the executive summary. We move on to the table of contents. In the table of contents, generally, as I said sometime back, table of contents is a list of things which you have referred to, and it refers to a particular page number which has been adopted in the report. Now, list of tables, figures, photographs, abbreviations is you have to list it out, and this is all automated. Where I'm going to have a separate session for it to look into how to list the tables, figures, and photographs, and how to automatically update it before just taking the print, because seen in the past that students have made mistakes. The page numbers and the tables and the figures are wrongly mentioned in the report, in the final report or the final print what they have taken. So it should be done automatically, and just before the taking the print of it, you need to update this so that the list of tables, figures, and photographs, or maybe list of contents is up to the mark. The first chapter, that is the introduction chapter, which should briefly introduce about what is your topic all about, and it should in detail explain what is its function, need, scope, be it it's a competitor or be it what the industry is all about, what was the problem taken by you, etc. in the first chapter. The second chapter should talk about the review of literature, and here generally what um, this chapter generally talks about what material has been referred, be it the theory which you have referred to in the material, the various papers which you have referred. You have to write it in a very abstract manner, and what are the principles being referred to, what is the theory being referred to, what is the concept being referred to in that particular paper, and what are its limitation, what are its disadvantages and disadvantages you need to write in. And if possible, try to write their merits and demerits uh, in the review of literature. Move on to the next chapter, that is the methodology chapter, where here you are going to make a mention of various procedures, methods available to solve the task problems undertaken should be mentioned from the review of literature under this chapter. Supposedly, you have used primary data for your research or secondary data for your research. Now, complete information about that particular procedure or that particular method has to be mentioned. Now, if some some projects would need secondary as well as the primary information, and here is the best way is you go ahead and you make a mention of both, and what is that you have referred to. You need to make a communication in this particular chapter. This chapter also makes a mention of what data analysis uh, were used, or what sample size determination tools were used, how sampling was done, if you're doing something on the primary data, or if you're doing something on the secondary data. With respect to secondary data, what formulas have been used, where have you got these formulas from, and what is the in detail formula talks about. You need to make a mention of all these things, and you need to cite wherever this information you have got, and you need to make a mention of that. The next chapter is analysis chapter, and this chapter talks about what results have been obtained by you in the form of tables, figures. Here you can use the descriptive statistics. What has been expected from a MBA student is, obviously, you need to have the tables and figures, but justify it. Interpretation should be in a nice way. You need to connect it to the concept which you have broadly designed, and or maybe which you're working on, and you need to provide discussions on the results which you have obtained, whether they can be generalized, or whether they are in line with what is the industry talking about, or anything new is to be done about it. So this is what it is, analyzed chapter. The next one is finding, suggestion, and conclusion. From the work, what you have done, what are your findings, and what conclusions can be drawn based on the findings, which can be probably segregated like major findings, and maybe about 8 to 10 good suggestions which you can give it to your company, and lastly about, say, about 1 to 2 pages on how you would want to conclude your uh, report. And on the similar lines, you can also write scope for any further research. Supposedly, someone would want to take up your topic and do further research. What guidelines would you want him to give? So this can be given in the form of scope for further research. The next one is references. References generally in Kannada University affiliated institutions, the projects which have been done, we happen to see that APA format, that is American Psychological Association format, number 6 has been used, and these are nothing but alphabetically ordered in a single spacing, left justified, and these are the list of materials which you have referred during your entire work, that is chapter number 1 to chapter number 5. So you need to cite them at that particular place, but you need to have a bibliography reference here at this particular place. Someone would want to cross verify whether you have really done. So whatever references you have done, or whatever citations you have done at the earlier case, you in the project, the references should be mentioned here. And here again, as I said some time back, we are going to have a separate session on how to cite, and how to get those references or bibliography right pasted here automatically. You need not to do anything. You just have to keep citing there, and the you just have to at the last insert bibliography, and it inserts the all citations done during the chapters which you have. And we move on to the last part, that is the appendix. And now supposedly you would want to give any information, additional information, to the person who's reading your project. It can be in the form of a primary data. Supposedly you have utilized a questionnaire, you would have to make a mention of a questionnaire here. And if you would have used any secondary source of information, say tables, or maybe uh, you would want to bring those things to the notice to the person who's going through your report, so you can make a mention of these things here. And in the appendix also, you would have to attach the 8 weeks weekly reports what you have submitted through your internal guide and external guide. You need to sign, and both your internal and external guide needs to sign on this. And in the appendix, you need to attach the 8 copies, that is the 8 weekly reports which are attached to the report. Now, these are this is basically about the business reports, and in precisely about the SIP report. If you have any queries or any questions, please do write to me, and please do talk to me. We shall have a one-to-one discussion on this. With this, I would like to end my session 1 on Zoom, and that is using the Zoom app on business reports, precisely SIP reports. Thank you.